Hello, Deep Mindfulness Collective. This, right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream coming to you live from Brooklyn, New York. If you're watching this on a playback anywhere, or if you're watching this on any other platform, just know that the place to come to join the chat is over here, twitch.tv/deepmindfulness. Welcome, folks. Lovely, as always, to see you here. I would love to hear where folks are coming from. What brings you here? That's even a better question, is why are you here? Where are you coming from? Why? What brought you here today? Let's see. Let's get this chat sucker going. Folks, I'm very excited today. Very good news. Not only do we have an animated background, which I thought would be fun, but we also have news today. We're actually going to be doing something special. Today we're going to meditate, which I love. So that's the good news. We'll be meditating today and having fun. Oh, it looks like we have Colin joining us here. Colin is coming from, well, I think you're, which part of NYC are you coming from, Colin? Be very curious. Wonder if you're at home or somewhere else. Frank and Nick are here on the line with us. Welcome, folks. Nice to see you here. Let us know where you're coming from. Make sure everything's working. Hello. Yes, okay. We're cooking. We're cooking with grease. Folks, more good news. We're going to continue our West Village. Welcome, Colin. We're going to continue our practice focused on new and the new experience. New sensations on the block. Is anyone old enough to actually remember that group? Hanover, lovely, welcome. Your head is swirling with ideas. Excellent. Well, we'll tamp those ideas down. That's our goal, is to crush anything fun and interesting. Just kidding. Okay, Karlstad, Sweden. Just want to learn more and actually practice meditation. The meditation, mind, consciousness, and all that sizzles. Very fun. By the way, the title says Introduction to Multiple Self Model with Raquel Shapiro. Well, listen, let's change that, shall we? Thank you. Actually, if Tomalin is on the line, he actually was streaming and competing, so he might not be here. Tomalin, if you are on the line, would you mind changing that title? Thank you for that. It actually, what it is that each time you, oh, thank you. Would you mind changing the title of this to, I guess this is the new, hello, Hammer Drill. Hi, we're right here. This is the new guided meditation, or the new series, part 5. Our old friend, the Hammer Drill, is back. Lovely. Jakudama, welcome. If you're new here to the channel, you might not know that we are big supporters of jackhammering in the building. This is a big key to having a good meditation live stream, is having someone jackhammering somewhere nearby. Great. Sounds good, Tomalin. Sounds excellent. Oh, there's 2 hammer drills. Hey, listen, the more the merrier. So the good news is that it's totally possible and actually not that hard to meditate with massive distraction happening, as long as your meditation practice has the bandwidth to hold that, which ours does, luckily. So let's find a nice comfortable position. And I realize my wife is here, about to get ready to go. Bye, my dear.
Bye, lovey.
I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Oh. I was asking Raquel a favor, and she can't do it. She's got to go. She's very busy. Just like old times. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, we used to have a lot of hammer drilling. This is very minor compared to what we used to have. But okay, folks, so finding that nice comfortable position, and when you're ready, we will begin. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. Feeling the sensations of the body rising and falling, and recognizing that we're experiencing those sensations through the filter of all of the past experiences of our life. All of the momentum of our past is playing itself out now. There's the sensations, there's the history of our experiencing. There's the forming and reforming of experience, stacking on top of the last. Each experience spilling over into the next. And so as we move through this process, simply allowing each experience to be new, to recognize this is certainly the first time these sensations have been detected in this arrangement, in this particular moment. So starting at the top of the head, beginning by relaxing the brow, letting it fall towards gravity. Letting this relaxation spill back to the eyes, letting them drop down just a bit. Allowing the face to go smooth. Relaxing the back of the tongue, not allowing the tongue and the jaw just to succumb to gravity just a bit, a few millimeters. Relaxing the neck and the shoulders. The upper arms, elbows, forearms, wrists, and tuning into the subtle sensations in the palms of the hands and tips of the fingers. Noticing the thousands of tiny sensations in this area of the body, and how each new bubbling sensation replaces the last. Letting go of any attempt to control the breath, letting the body breathe as it will. Noticing the natural tightening and relaxing of the upper chest and upper back as the breath comes and goes. Relaxing the belly and allowing the belly to relax so much that it relaxes the lower back, the tailbone. Relaxing the tailbone so deeply that it relaxes the hips, allowing them to release just the slightest bit. relaxing the upper legs and knees, the calves, the ankles, and relaxing the feet. And now allowing the mind to filter out all experiences aside from restful sensations in the body. So anything neutral, anything relaxing. Effectively tasking the mind with seeing if it can detect all of these sensations all together. And beginning to establish our balance, observing the experience of the breath along with these relaxing sensations. Letting our attention find this detail of the breath without collapsing down. The awareness of the relaxed body. We might even let go of where we detect the breath sensations, letting the where, the location function of the mind go, and feeling the breath sensations wherever we're detecting them, at the tip of the nose or the belly or the throat, letting those be felt all over the body, everywhere. This might seem counterintuitive, but it may be possible. If not, no big deal. whether we find a balance that is simply between restful sensations in the breath, or we're detecting the breath all throughout the body, spreading a local area to be detected everywhere. If we'd like to use a labeling strategy, we can simply label this balance all. Now we're going to make a slight transition. Beginning to observe the experience of the present moment coming into consciousness. The way, no matter what the experience is, the mind will show it to us as though it's new. As though we are just being born into this moment. As though we're increasing the refresh rate on our present moment experience, letting it be new over and over again. Noticing how much of our experience seems specific and solid. Meaning it has a location, an arrangement. Each sensation is experienced as a happening, as a verb. Noticing that the mind will show us experiences that seem like nouns, like objects, things that come and go, rather than ongoing processes. That's fine, it's not a problem. Each time we notice a noun experience, we can label that noun, or if we'd like, we can label it nama, using a traditional term. And each time we recognize a sensation as an ongoing process, not conceptually, but we experience it this way. We can use the label verb, or if we'd like the traditional label, we can call this rupa. So not observing this conceptually. Does the mind think it's one thing or the other? But as the experience arises brand new into consciousness, does the body-mind read it as an ongoing process, or as a thing, as an object? Neither is better, neither is worse. If we're unconsciously creating a reading on this meditation, how it's going, how we are doing, simply asking if the system is reading this as a noun or verb. Either using those labels, the labels nama and rupa, or no labels at all. Whatever supports our practice. Of course, things we notice as a noun may turn into a verb. or the other way around. And we can check in, does this system judge one as better than the other? If so, is that experience more of a noun or a verb? Noticing that the mind has a tendency and an ability to capture experiences like a flashbulb. And that if we stay with those experiences, they can often transition from that solid flash to a process, something changing. But both of these are important parts of the mind. Just watching the mind form and deform, flow and arrive at pressure points where things feel solid. Allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes. Eventually allowing the eyes to rest on one point as they fully open. And checking in if our seeing experience is being tagged by the mind as something solid, a noun. Or if the mind is observing this as an ongoing process. And letting this moment here, with our eyes open, be the great teacher. Let it be the wise guide that teaches us how to bring this practice into every piece of our lives. Okay. So what was that like? What happened? And what do you like now? And as we begin to consider what we want to report, what our thoughts are about what just occurred, I'll quickly recap the practice we just did. Maybe this can help you in your reporting. We started out simply watching the breath in relationship to the body, relaxation of the body. And I also guided something I haven't guided in a while, but basically allowing the sensations of wherever we're detecting the breath to be felt anywhere or everywhere in the body. This isn't always available for everyone, but it could be for you at this given moment. Part of this is that awareness has the capability of, it doesn't care so much about edges or borders. And so if we observe the breath from the position of awareness, it can actually just take those sensations and spread them all over the body, which is slightly different than a technique where you actually detect the breath sensations or the effect of the breath everywhere in the body. So if you're very in tune with your breathing experience, you can take a deep breath now and feel the breath in your toes. It's not quite the same. We're almost transposing this. I do it often at the tip of the nose. So transposing these sensations to be everywhere. Again, not available for everyone, but with time it can be. So that's what we did first. Then we transitioned to just noticing the way that the present moment sort of appears and appears over and over again. This sort of new material arising. And then we started looking at its noun and verb qualities, that the mind will tend to tag things as object or as process, And I also emphasize that we don't want to privilege one over the other. Often, especially if we've meditated a lot or been around meditation communities, there's this sense that, well, of course the verb tense is better because we want to know impermanence. But really we just want to know reality. And part of reality is that the mind aggregates. It gathers material into pieces. So there's the aggregating process and there's the deaggregating process. So we're just observing those happening. I find that I've been around meditation communities for such a long time that again and again and again my mind will tell me that the aggregating process is bad. But it's what I can notice also is that sort of sense of, oh, well, this part of the mind is bad, this thing. I can actually watch that as a process. The judgment sort of flow in, be there, sort of dance, and then disappear. So no matter what, you can always recycle the process if you can, notice what's behind it. So that's the practice we did. If you'd like to drop a note in the chat about what your experience was, feel free. You can also jump onto our Discord if you'd like to chat about your experience. How does that work? Well, you jump on Discord, it'll probably pop you into the waiting room. And from there, that will we'll bring you to the voice waiting room, and from there we can drop you into the general chat. We had some muting issues before, but hopefully that's resolved. And that is if you'd like to chat, we'd love to hear your voice, because it's always a little easier to hear in-depth reports and questions if we have your voice. So yeah, what was that like? I sometimes just want to wait here without any more doing nothing, just waiting to see what folks say, but it's always good to chat a little bit. Dig more into the noun-verb piece. Okay, so I'm guessing you're saying, can I chat more about what I mean by noun and verb? So typically, we experience the world as a noun or set of nouns. And this might seem a little abstract, but it's very common, right? It's like, well, this is a microphone. This is Janusz, right? This is the screen I'm looking at. That is what's occurring. It's an object. And we experience our internal experiences like that. Like, oh, there's an emotion in the body. Well, that's a thing. It's an object. And if we look closely at any one of those objects, typically we don't, because we're just tossed from object to object to object, or the sort of mind will just sort of toss us from one to the next, and there's no real sense of anything sort of being a dynamic force. And what we're exploring here is the tendency of the mind to do that, and then one little trick way to work with that is to just observe that solidity at any given point and notice that the solidity just starts to slide and morph into something else over and over and over again. And when we say we want to have insight into impermanence, we want to observe that quality 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, and then the system, the body mind, will recognize that as a fact of reality. And the parts of us that rest on solidity don't have to rest on solidity. And actually, in our class yesterday, Frank raised a great question, which was, what if we, effectively, this is not quite it, but what if we want to rest on solidity? What if we like the solidity of the experience of having a self? Well, good, because that's part of the human experience, and we don't want to deny that. And I think that part of the problem is that because we see the verb tense as progress at first, right? Because it's different than our usual sort of noun tense of the present moment, or noun tense of our experience. Because it's different, we see that as progress. And over time we think, okay, more of this seems like more progress, so this must be the way to go, is to have everything be flowing. Flow is the answer. When actually flow is just part of the human experience, and aggregation and sort of pieces feeling stable is another part of the human experience. And so you can start to see how any experience could actually be seen as flowing, or any experience could be seen as static, or experience as sort of a stable quality. And so that's I'll just stop there because I could go on forever, but that's the noun verb sort of general breakdown. I'll see here what Nick has to say. Sometimes when when my focus is good, I feel the breath throughout the whole body. Experienced five senses. Whole body. Experienced five senses plus noun most of the time. Sometimes just the sense that sense. Sometimes just the senses. That's verb, right? I'm bad with grammar. Well, that's no problem. I'm bad with grammar too. Dog whining was a particularly strong noun. So I'm curious, did you hear I don't think you could hear my dog whining. It was so quiet. I could hear it every once in a while, and then there's the hammer drilling, but I'm guessing you probably could not hear my dog whining. I'm curious. But I don't want to say what is the verb and what is the noun, because it's really subjective. It's like by its nature extremely subjective. I think once we have experience of the verb quality of our human, the human perceptual machine, the contrast becomes very clear. But just know that we don't have to, if we can't have contact with the sort of ongoing quality of our experience, and I'll give a concrete example in a moment, but if we can't have contact with that, all we need to do is observe the noun quality, the solidity, closely, and then recognize, how do we know that it's solid, right? This is the not this, the thing we talk about, where something is defined by its opposite, its environment. So you can, I always say you can hear my voice because there's not 1,000 of my voices occurring at once. You hear it in contrast to the silence. So if you notice the noun quality and then hang out with that and hang out with that and hang out with that, eventually that can basically effectively let us see that in order for this to feel solid, we have to know some contrast. We have to know what is solid, what is not, and we can start to disaggregate in that way. So that might be a little strange way to explain it, but that's one route. Focus on experience of five senses. So basically any experience could be experienced as a noun or a verb. And so the concrete example I want to give is, so not the screen, fix the eyes or rest the eyes on one point. Don't let it be the screen or anything with writing on it, because the mind will really whip up with those things. So just picking one point. And notice that typically if you look at this point, it looks like a point. It looks like a thing. It's an object. It's a thing I'm looking at. And see if, and this is actually difficult with seeing, see if you can recognize that this isn't an object, it's an ongoing process. And the seeing process is itself a verb. That seeing is not an object, it's not a noun, it's something that is transforming through space, time. And so at first we notice our senses exist. Then we notice, our senses have, well, I don't want to say that this is how I teach. So first we notice our senses exist, then we notice our senses have different intensity levels. And then we start to notice, one sense will bump into another sense, creating a sort of a continuous experience of cause and effect. And then if we start to notice that the mind will organize material, it'll call things nouns and verbs, self, world, all these things that it calls nouns, and hang out with that noun. We start to notice the noun will just itself start to change, even if it's just the mind changing, even if it's just perception sort of warping and twisting in this way. So this is pretty weird stuff. So if it's not sticking, or if it seems like overly abstract, totally understand. This is not surprising. If folks know, we start at a relatively an open level, and then we've been getting more and more sort of into the weeds. So if you're just joining now, just know that this is pretty deep in the weeds. And the playbacks, which I think are all on YouTube, which I gotta get a cut and paste little notepad here thing with all of our links. But Tomalin, if you are there, just throw out the link to the second YouTube channel, which we're hoping to name an easier name soon. I actually realized I just realized I had a dream that channel had reached 100 subscribers, which means that then we could change the name once it's 100 subscribers. So I dreamt that happened, and I was searching for that function. So, okay. So then Nate says, so it is a matter of our awareness searching for sensation versus sitting in neutral awareness and letting the sensation be sensed. I'm not sure. No. Okay, that's a perfect explanation. Yeah, the sentence you said before, there's a lot of pieces to that, so it would be hard for me without talking to understand exactly that sentence, but it sounds like you got a resolution. That sounds like a perfect explanation. So hopefully, that is an explanation that works for you. Nick says, I heard a dog, but faintly. Okay, I was just noticing the sense actively without sensing a noun. Okay, great. And that's something, we've been working on this, so you might be sort of catching up to this, that if we're watching the arising of each moment, watching this moment appear, it'll tend to seem like I said, a freeze frame. Okay, the mind has this capability of saying, okay, this moment, like a flash, okay, and you can do it now, this moment. And it flashes, kind of sort of captures, and it can tend to reinforce that idea that this is a noun. It's like, okay, I got a freeze frame of it, I got reality, and then, I've kind of get unconscious, and okay, new freeze frame. This is reality. And it has this sort of like noun stacked on noun quality, like pieces of a film. Yet, if we notice that flash, the capturing thing, you can do it again, but notice the capturing thing is actually a process. It's not even a flash bulb goes off and on. It's sort of this thing that goes like bloop and grabs the present moment. It sort of tries to hold it, and we usually let it go at that point. But if we take a freeze frame of this moment, and then notice the whole moment starts to warp and twist and turn into the next moment. What we're starting to do is shift our awareness from the freeze frame to this ongoing warping, thing that the mind does. Really fun. You have exactly 100 Twitch followers. Maybe that was it. That was that. Well, that's great. I didn't realize I had 100 Twitch followers. That's so wonderful. Today's a celebration. Today we did it, folks. That is fantastic. Good job, folks. 100. I see. I didn't even see that coming. See, at 50, they allow you to do something. I forget what it is. And so I stopped paying attention. So that's great. 50 followers. Thanks, all the followers. Great to have you here as always. Thank you for that. So any other reports or questions? Any clarifications needed or would be helpful? And I'm checking. Okay, no one's on Discord. Very cool. Yeah, and if one thing I also know about these guided meditations, and again, the replays are on the second YouTube channel. Tomalin, if you're here, if maybe you already did post this, but the link to the YouTube channel, I'll just check. Maybe you already posted it. I don't see it. So if you can post the link to the, just look for it and do the exclamation point, so it doesn't have to be on the screen necessarily, but we'll have a short URL for that soon. Let's see. Nick asks, is it possible to noun without freeze framing? Well, yes and no. In the class that we were just doing, we're talking about the mind's tendency to grab onto things, to glob them into data. Oh, what is this? It says it's something. Oh, a cheer. Nick, thank you so much for the cheer. Lovely. Thanks for that. Very, very appreciated. That's much appreciated. I often miss what it is, and I'm like, what is it? Because it only shows on my screen for a second. So thank you for that. Thinking is, what was I just talking about? Is it possible to notice the noun without freeze framing? Freeze framing is not a technical term, so in the way that I'm using it pretty loosely, sort of no. But what it is possible is to recognize the noun making quality of the mind is a process itself. So, I want to give a simpler example, because I've been giving somewhat abstract examples. What's a really simple example? Okay, as I'm speaking, right, the mind, you can detect it taking the sound of my voice and turning it into meaning. If I made nonsense sounds, it wouldn't work as well. So if I, right, the mind's sort of riding on this group of sounds, and typically I'll just start to categorize it as sort of like, okay, here's the general sound range that it's in, and that's how it packages it. But it doesn't package it in terms of English language. And so an example is if I give a sort of a sentence that hangs, and there's a degree to which you can detect the mind sort of waiting for the next piece of information. I'll give a better example. So the one that I like is all mountains in Spain enjoy rain. Okay, nonsense sentence, but notice that the mind is sort of it captures a piece that it knows the sounds of the words, and it captures it, and then it sort of leans and it said, okay, what's next? There's a waiting quality, and that's part of the aspect of the sort of object making quality of the mind. And so you can watch that. You can watch that occurring in that way. Let's see. What's the other example I wanted to give? Oh yeah, okay. So Colin, I think Colin's still here. I'm going to get this wrong, but Colin and I were talking about the list of adverbs that we had to memorize as kids. And I haven't quite memorized it. I know the A's, there's not that many. I should memorize the rest of it. But notice that each time I say this word, the mind will create a spatial location. Here's the example. Each one of these adverbs. So aboard. And maybe the mind creates a, ship. Maybe it, throws someone on top of that ship. So just notice the mind will arrange things by these words. About. Against. So it's just sound, and you can immediately see the mind arrange spatially pieces. Aboard, about, above. Oh, above. Across. After. Against. Along, meaning alongside, not temporally, spatially along, not among, around, at. I like at. At is the idea of at. It is so much like what the mind does. It says, at. It says like there's this a Sanskrit term called tat-ata, which means it means the thing in itself, and you can almost hear like a little child going tat tat, like saying like that thing, and that's exactly what the sort of that part of the mind does. Is at this. It's the this quality of the mind. So hopefully that's an example. Oh yeah. So Colin knows these. After the A's. Okay. What about above, across, after, against, along, among, around, at, before, beneath, beside, beyond, between. I think that might be all the B's. I think that's as far as I can remember, but there aren't that many more. Most adverbs, weirdly, are A's and B's. There's like a few C's, and the rest are just like a spattering, but you can look this up. I'm sure there's a list of these, but I want to remember this again. So Colin says, great example, the hanging sentence also left a void in my mind, waiting to be filled. And in that, you can notice the pressure of the mind waiting to organize data. It's like, and like so much of our life is built out of this, movies and tension and all these things. It's, another example is the narrative of our lives, right? Where the mind keeps placing this moment in the narrative of my whole life. I've always been here, and this is the same self that's always been here, et cetera, to recognize that actually the sensory experience is not necessarily connected to all of these pieces, but the mind keeps ordering this data, saying this is part of this narrative, which is effectively, from our perspective, completely imaginary. Again, I'm not saying that we don't have a past or that we're in the matrix or something, but from our current perspective, we don't have access to that other than through our current sensory experience. Okay, let me double check my calendar so I don't overlap, and then somebody's waiting for me. Okay, I got to jump off. Folks, in less than 24 hours, we're going to be back here with Raquel. And we're starting to I'm trying to get a setup here going that is actually arranged so that Raquel and I can do this like really smoothly. Because you've seen when we're doing it, I'm like over here, like inside the thing, and we went out. So we're trying to get a setup so that works. So we're probably going to have to get some new equipment because it's one shared microphone doesn't work super well, and it's also that a number of things. But also I want Raquel to have time to guide meditations, because I always guide. She's an excellent meditation guide, which would be lovely. And let's see. Oh yeah, my knuckle tattoos. That's funny because Nick is referring to. I've said before, if I ever got knuckle tattoos, I'm probably not ever going to, but if I ever got knuckle tattoos, I want to get Nama and Rupa as like the two like. I think that'd be really great. Okay, so let's see. Nick also says that was somewhat overly intrusive, the cheer animation with sound. Hopefully that's not too intrusive. Yeah, nice example. I remember I once heard your voice like pure nonsense. Rupa, exactly. And you can do it now. Listen to the sound of my voice, like just as sound, just as weird noises coming into the universe as it exists, and notice that there'll be a tension. The mind will keep snapping and gathering the information, and it has a harder time listening to the sound, harder than if I were saying that's easier to listen to the sound than the words, and the words it'll grip into meaning for the mind. Similar as if I spoke in a different language. The example I'll sometimes use is the German word. We'll see Frank will this won't work for Frank, but I'll often say there's a German word, and if you don't know German, the word is Schmetterlinge, which I love. If you know the meaning, it's such a German way of saying this thing, Schmetterlinge. So just notice what the mind does with that, right? It maybe comes with an onomatopoetic sort of answer. It's like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and especially because the sound is very different than the way we would use the word, or the translation of the word. So that's what the mind does, right? And now watch immediately, as soon as I say the English word, what the mind does with that information. It'll tend to just wrap it up and give us a sense of, oh, I now connect that with what Schmetterlinge means. So the German word Schmetterlinge means butterfly. So notice there's a sense of knowing, there's a sense of it sort of reattaching maybe to this word Schmetterlinge, maybe there's a little discord because of this sort of funny nature, but just notice that it was a very different experience hearing the German word and hearing the English word, and one is the speed at which the mind can grab it, wrap it up. So yes, knuckle tattoos, butterfly. Well, see, Nick knew too. I got to find a better language. Maybe I can get some, I don't know, some very strange language that no one's ever heard. An interesting one is listening to Scottish for me. It sounds completely unintelligible, but if you get it, it suddenly makes sense. Yeah, any language, any foreign language is like that. It's really powerful to know that. And, it's funny. It's like babies, they will, especially twins sometimes, they'll create their own language, and it's purely emotional. They're just basically singing to each other in the form of talking. And twins will be like, and then the other one will be like, and they have their own language. They're actually communicating with each other, mainly emotionally. The sound of the human voice actually has a lot of what we're hearing is an emotional tone. And when you hear the computer voice that has absolutely no tonality in it, it feels very dead and silent inside. Like there's a dead quality to it, whereas the human voice has this up and down quality. That up and down quality is, we're talking about mental grabbing, but that's an emotional grabbing, right? If you hear someone and they're freaking out, right? The mind can grab onto that, but there's also an emotional sort of grabbing on, emotional organizing of that data. So, let's see. Sounds like a deadly weapon. Yeah, it does sound like a deadly weapon. Maybe we should use the word Panzerfaust. I mean, Scottish is in between. It's English. Oh, you mean like speaking English with a Scottish accent? But until the mind gets it, yeah, that's exactly right. When you hear people speaking in a really dense accent, I grew up with a mom who spoke in a very intense. She had a heavy accent. I never even knew. I can't even hear her accent, which is funny to other people. But I can hear. I hear through accents in English much easier than most people, so it's often easier for my mind to translate that material. So that's fun. Okay, so folks, I'm going to jump off, and I will see folks very soon. Less than 24 hours, we're going to be back here with Raquel. We're trying to upgrade so that Raquel can be more comfortable here all the time. We're not just squeezed into one person's space. We actually changed the set a little bit, and that's the shape of things. Thank you so much, Nick, for your cheer, and thanks folks for following us. We reached 100. We've done it. We're done. And that's it. I just had this thought of like, we've gotten all of the infinity stones. We'll snap ourselves out of existence. Yeah, we'll go from there. So folks, I have a wish for you. My wish for you is just to watch in this present moment and the rest of your day, and until we meet again, just watch reality forming around us. Watch the mind gathering material. Sometimes it gathers material in order to feel safe, to feel like, okay, I have this ongoing narrative that I'm part of, and that's okay. It makes me feel like I have a continuous world that I exist in. And sometimes it gathers material just because it's used to doing it. It has the momentum of doing that, and just to notice the gathering process. That's a way to find freedom even within the gathering. Nick says, sweet. Yeah, that was 5 cents of something. Well, okay, that's great. I'm not sure. I don't know how much the amounts are or whatever, but listen, every piece of support helps. We appreciate that very much. Time to head home. Okay, folks, time for me to head home. I'm going to turn on this ending music, but I can still see you and hear you. Outro. Folks, it's so lovely to have spent a little time with you, to hear your input, as always. As you transition to yourself becoming a transparent plant, floating throughout your life, gathering the invisible sunshine of existence. Just remember that, like a plant, you don't need time. You don't need a self. you need is the care of the world around you that knows how to care for you by its nature. Thanks. Nick is mentioning that if folks want to subscribe to the stream, that is much more helpful for the stream support-wise. But of course, there's no pressure to do that if you don't want to. We love all of our supporters. Language. Language, vision, and time is my top 3 confusion mongers. Are my top 3 confusion mongers? I want to hear more about that. Nick, throw a question in the Discord in the stream questions section, because I'd love to hear what you mean by that. I'd be happy to, if I can help in some way explain that, I'd be happy to. Okay, folks, I'm going to sign off for the day. Hope you have a lovely day. Looking forward to seeing you all very soon.